The heavy front doors of the Montgomery estate creaked open like the gates of judgment. The same marble foyer I used to skip across barefoot every summer now loomed cold and unfamiliar, like a museum of a past I was no longer allowed to claim. The scent of fresh lilies filled the air, too sweet, too staged, masking the rot that had settled deep into the heart of this family. Sarah Montgomery's voice sliced through the stillness like a knife wrapped in velvet. "Parker, darling," she drawled, her lips barely curving into what might have passed for a smile. "You can't possibly expect to stay in the Montgomery estate dressed like that. Please share your thoughts in the comment section below. Each of your shares is not only a motivation for us, but also contributes to spreading value to the community. If you find this content useful, don't forget to watch the whole video, like, subscribe, and share with someone you think needs to hear this too." She gestured lazily to my black dress, plain, sleeveless, still wrinkled from the funeral. The same dress I wore hours earlier while standing beside my grandfather's casket. I hadn't come for comfort. I hadn't expected love. But I thought, perhaps foolishly, that grief might soften the sharp edges of this family. It hadn't. Sarah's perfectly manicured hand waved me off as if I were a guest who'd overstayed her welcome, not the granddaughter of the man whose death had brought us all together. I stood there, momentarily frozen. The crystal chandelier above cast fractured light across the marble, reflecting off faces that once cheered at my childhood piano recitals. Now, those same faces turned away, eyes glazed with indifference or quiet disdain. "Mother, please," came a voice from beside me. Familiar, gentle, deceiving. Thomas. My fiancé of 3 years stepped forward, his hand brushing against mine, his voice soft. "Parker's grandfather just passed away. Show some compassion." His words were perfect, practiced, but his eyes didn't match. There was no grief there, no fire, just a calculated flatness, like someone running through a script. I felt the first crack in my chest, thin but deep. "Compassion," Sarah echoed, swirling her afternoon martini. "Of course, dear. We're simply adjusting to the sudden change. The will hasn't even been read yet, and tensions are understandably high." Tensions? They'd barely buried the man, and already they were speaking in coded warnings. I didn't belong here. That message was being delivered in every sideways glance, every carefully chosen word. "But this is my home," I said, my voice quieter than I intended. "I lived here every summer until I was 18. My grandfather—" "Your grandfather," Harrison Montgomery cut in, his voice low and commanding, from the leather armchair near the fireplace, made many questionable decisions in his final years. Thomas's father didn't look at me when he spoke. He didn't need to. His presence was enough, all steel and shadows. The company nearly collapsed twice. "Progressive ideals, misplaced trust," he added, a glance flicking toward me like a backhanded slap. He allowed sentimentality to cloud his judgment. My fingers curled into fists at my sides. This wasn't grief. It was a prelude to war. And then Thomas, sweet, safe, steady Thomas, squeezed my hand. But it no longer felt reassuring. It felt final. "Parker," he murmured, his tones soothing, practiced. "Maybe my mother's right. You should take a little space. Just until things settle down." Settle down? The words hit harder than I expected. Was he asking me to leave? To leave my grandfather's house? The place where he raised me? Where he taught me to ride a bike and do crosswords and how to spot a liar? "I'll have Rogers drive you back to your apartment," Thomas said, ignoring the rising tremble in my voice. "It's just for a little while. We can reassess things after the engagement party." Reassess? I looked up at him, really looked, at the man I'd nearly said yes to forever with. And for the first time, I saw him clearly, his jaw tight with restraint, his hand already slipping from mine, his eyes already drifting toward his phone, probably messaging Melissa Wheeler, the woman his parents had openly preferred from day one. I opened my mouth to speak, but it was too late. "Miss Reed." Rogers appeared as if summoned. "Your bags." I stared at him in disbelief. "They're in the East Wing guest room," I said, stunned. the blue one. I'll retrieve them, he nodded gently, his eyes flickering with something that might have been sorrow. Or guilt. As he turned away, Sarah's voice floated behind him, syrupy sweet and stinging. It's for the best, dear. You understand, don't you? The Montgomerys have a certain standard to maintain. I didn't cry. Not then. I was my grandfather's granddaughter, and he taught me better than that. But as I walked down the estate's grand staircase, the same one I used to slide down in my socks, my world felt like it was splitting in two. Parker, wait. Thomas called out one last time. For a second, I turned, heart foolish enough to hope. He extended his hand. Not for me. For the ring. Mother thinks it's best if we hold on to it. Family heirloom, you understand. The 3-carat diamond had never felt heavier. I slipped it off. Our fingers brushed once. Of course, I said coldly. Wouldn't want it falling into the wrong hands. And then I walked out of the house, out of their story, out of the life they thought they could control. The car ride back to Boston was silent. As the Montgomery estate faded in the rearview mirror, I didn't cry. But something inside me changed. They thought they'd won. They had no idea what they'd just set in motion. Because this wasn't the end. It was the prologue. My apartment felt colder than usual when I stepped inside. It was the kind of chill that came from betrayal, from a door closing behind you, one you thought would always be open. The worn couch, the squeaky floorboard near the kitchen, the chipped coffee table cluttered with work files, they'd once been symbols of a life I chose. A life I built, with pride. Now, they felt like remnants of a woman I no longer recognized. I dropped my bag, kicked off my heels, and collapsed onto the couch, letting the silence settle over me. That's when I saw it. The letter. Sitting exactly where I'd left it, on the edge of the coffee table, unopened, untouched, almost forgotten. It had arrived just days before my grandfather died. I'd been too busy. Work. Thomas's mother's endless charity functions. Wedding planning that had more to do with legacy than love. I had set it aside with the intention of reading it later. Now, old later had arrived. With trembling fingers, I broke the seal. His handwriting was still the same, neat, elegant, precise. My dearest Parker, if you're reading this, then I'm already gone. Don't waste tears on me. I've lived a good life, though perhaps not always a wise one. But there are things you need to know. Truths that couldn't be spoken while I lived. I read the words aloud, my voice shaking as a chill crawled down my spine. The Montgomerys think they've won, that they've erased you. But they've forgotten the most important lesson I ever taught you: patience, dignity, justice. Justice. You are so much more than they know, than anyone knows. And tomorrow at 2 p.m., at the reading of my will, they will begin to learn who you really are. But that's only the beginning. I couldn't breathe. Everything I built, everything they tried to corrupt, now belongs to you. I blinked. Reread the words. No. That couldn't be right. But then, of course it could. This was him. My grandfather. Always 3 steps ahead, always planning, always protecting. I flipped the page. A small note was attached, his handwriting again, but this time more rushed. P.S. Look beneath the envelope flap. My fingers moved on instinct, peeling back the inner layer. There it was. A small USB drive. And a set of numbers. Coordinates? Note, a passcode? My heart pounded in my chest. Just then, a knock at my door jolted me back to reality. I froze. Another knock, firmer this time. I peeked through the peephole. A woman in her 60s. Silver hair. A sleek black coat. Eyes sharp enough to cut glass. She held up a card against the door. Victoria Blackwood, attorney at law. When I opened the door, her gaze swept across my apartment, taking in every detail without judgment. A refreshing change. Parker Reed? She asked, her voice calm, composed, utterly no nonsense. Yes. Your grandfather insisted I deliver this to you personally. She held out a thick manila envelope. Tonight. Not tomorrow. Not at the will reading. I took it slowly, half afraid of what I might find inside. She watched me for a beat before speaking again. He knew this day would come. He planned for it. What do you mean? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Let's just say, Victoria said, her lips curving into the faintest smile, the Montgomerys aren't the only ones who know how to play the long game. She left as quietly as she came. I sat on the couch, envelope in hand, staring at it like it might explode. Inside, a key card, another note, and a flash drive. The note was handwritten. Familiar, comforting, final. Office 1502. Montgomery Industries. Tonight only. Security will be blind from 10 to midnight. Use the key card. Plug in the drive. Find the truth. I didn't think. I just moved. I changed into dark clothes, tied my hair back, and slipped the card and drive into my coat pocket. Boston streets blurred past me as I walked with more purpose than fear. 20 minutes later, I stood in front of a building I had only admired from afar, Montgomery Industries, glowing like a pillar of glass and steel under the city lights. The security guard barely glanced at my ID. The card beeped. The elevator lit up. 15th floor. Office 1502. The door still bore his name. Richard Montgomery, founder. I stepped inside, expecting dust, maybe decay. But it was immaculate. Just as I remembered. Leather chairs. Crystal decanter. A wall of framed newspaper clippings. The man who changed Boston tech. Richard Montgomery. Visionary or rebel. But this time, I wasn't here for nostalgia. I powered on his computer. Plugged in the drive. One file appeared. Just one. A video. I clicked play. His face filled the screen. Older. Tired. But determined. If you're watching this, Parker, then they've already tried to erase you. My breath caught in my throat. But you're not erased. You are the future of this company. Not them. You. He leaned closer. Harrison, Thomas, Sarah, they're not just greedy. They're dangerous. I've collected everything, evidence of embezzlement, espionage, even treason. And I've moved it all under Phoenix Enterprises, a new entity. Hidden. Safe. In your name. I covered my mouth, stunned. Phoenix was mine? He kept talking, his voice firm now, like he was speaking across time. They think they've beaten you, but they don't know what's coming. The screen cut to black. In its place, folders. Labeled. Offshore accounts. Shell companies. Military secrets. I stared. Then I smiled. Not because it was funny, but because it was war. And thanks to my grandfather, I had just found my arsenal. The deeper I dug, the more I realized something sickening. Montgomery Industries wasn't just corrupt. It was rotten to its core. I sat alone in my grandfather's private office, the warm hum of the old computer the only sound in the room. My hands hovered over the mouse as I opened one folder after another, each one darker than the last. Financial records. Export licenses. Encrypted emails. Every file was a betrayal wrapped in a smile. At first, it looked like standard white-collar fraud, misappropriated funds, backdoor deals, bribes. But then, I found the shell corporations. One linked to Thomas, another to Harrison, a dozen more hidden in offshore accounts from the Caymans to Cyprus. They had been draining the company for years. Worse, they'd done it together. My heart hammered in my chest as I clicked open an email marked Aurora Systems Contract, Diversion Strategy. It was between Thomas and Harrison. If the new board appointees get suspicious, remind them of the mental decline narrative. Richard's obsession with reform makes him the perfect fall guy. I froze. Mental decline? They had been laying the groundwork for years, planting rumors, manipulating internal memos, tarnishing my grandfather's legacy bit by bit. They didn't just want his company. They wanted to erase him entirely. And Thomas, my Thomas, had been a part of it. A deep, searing cold spread through my chest. I clicked on another email, hoping, praying, that it wasn't true. Melissa's team has a strategy ready. Public sympathy, controlled press, and a reshaping of the Montgomery brand. Thomas as the future, Parker quietly phased out. My hand trembled. Melissa Wheeler. Of course. The family's golden girl. The one Sarah had paraded around like a prized show dog during our entire engagement. And now I saw it clearly. The stolen glances, the last-minute business trips, the staged photo ops. It was all part of the deception. I wasn't just unwanted. I was targeted, pushed aside, gaslit, rewritten. But they made one mistake, one fatal miscalculation. They thought I was weak. They thought I wouldn't fight back. And they never thought he would tell me everything. Because my grandfather, brilliant, stubborn, unyielding, had left breadcrumbs in every document, every folder, every keystroke. Notes only I would understand. A line of code in a file name. A reference to a summer we solved riddles in the East Study. Clues that built a bigger picture, and a terrifying one. Montgomery Industries wasn't just bleeding money.
It was selling secrets.
I opened the file labeled Athena Protocol, Class Alpha Clearance Required. Encrypted. But I knew the key. June 22, Harvard. The date of my MBA graduation. My grandfather's proudest day. The file cracked open. What I saw next made my blood run cold. They weren't just moving money.
They were selling defense contracts.
Military technology. Blueprints. Weapon schematics. Tactical AI systems. All being funneled through shell entities to foreign buyers, some flagged by U.S. intelligence. Thomas is handling the Wheeler connection. She's got contacts in Luxembourg. Keeps the paper trail clean.
No.
No. This wasn't just betrayal. This was treason. I leaned back in the chair, my breath coming in shallow gasps. The man I had planned to marry had sold me out, and my grandfather had known all along. That's why he transferred the patents to Phoenix Enterprises. That's why he made me CEO in secret. That's why he waited until now. He wasn't just trying to preserve a legacy. He was trying to save lives. Suddenly, the door creaked open. I jumped, heart in my throat. But it was only Victoria Blackwood. Her eyes scanned the screen before meeting mine. "You've found it, haven't you?" I nodded slowly. "They've been selling tech to foreign enemies. Weapons. AI systems. They're laundering money through companies that don't even exist on paper. And Thomas," my voice cracked. "He's in on it. All of it." Victoria didn't flinch. "Your grandfather suspected as much. That's why we gathered everything. That's why we waited for you. Why didn't he go to the authorities?" She crossed the room, closing the door behind her. "Because the corruption goes deeper than just the Montgomerys. Think generals, lawmakers,
CEOs.
There are people in positions of power who benefited from this network. If Richard had acted too soon, they would have buried him." My chest tightened. "So what now?" Victoria placed a leather-bound folder in front of me. Inside, contracts, recordings, affidavits. Every thread tied to a name, a date, a number. "The moment the Montgomerys move against you," she said, "we go public. FBI, Department of Justice.
Press.
You hold the detonator, Parker." I stared at the evidence. Everything they had done. Every lie. Every betrayal. I was supposed to be erased. A footnote. A discarded fiancé. But now I held the power to bring them all down. A slow smile spread across my lips. They're going to regret ever underestimating me. Victoria's eyes gleamed.
Yes,
They are. Because I wasn't just Parker Reed, social worker from Boston. I was Parker Reed Montgomery. And I was done playing nice. The moment the Phoenix interface came to life on the screen, I stopped breathing. It was sleek.
dark, silent.
A digital heartbeat pulsing in the corner, as if the system itself was alive, waiting, watching. My name glowed in bold silver letters across the top. Parker Reed Montgomery. Executive access granted. I sat back slowly, heart racing. All around me, my grandfather's office stood still, frozen in time. But the screen in front of me, that was the future. A future no one else knew I owned. Phoenix Enterprises wasn't a shell company. It was a fortress. Every file I clicked opened another locked room filled with information so sensitive, so explosive, it could have taken down governments, not just companies. It wasn't just a place to hide assets. It was an entire shadow operation built on foresight, paranoia, and genius. A new kind of empire, built from scratch, off-grid, untouchable, and it was all mine. Victoria stood silently behind me, letting the weight of it sink in. She didn't offer guidance or comfort. She knew this moment wasn't about easing me into it. It was about letting me feel the full impact of what I had just inherited. And the full danger. One click pulled up the asset transfer record. Patents. Facilities. Proprietary software. R&D technologies. Everything that had made Montgomery Industries powerful, its real power, had been moved 6 months ago, quietly, legally, and completely into Phoenix Enterprises.
My name was on every signature line.
Executed by my grandfather. Witnessed by attorneys. Hidden beneath layers of corporate misdirection so thick even the FBI would need a team of hackers to untangle it. But I had the keys. All of them. They're going to lose their minds, I whispered. Victoria's lips curved into the ghost of a smile. Oh, they'll do more than that. How long before they realize? They'll get the first hint by morning, she replied. Some of the board members are already calling emergency meetings. But they'll think it's just a financial anomaly. They won't understand what's actually happened until the will is read. And by then, I said, scrolling to the Phoenix activation timeline. They'll already be out, she finished. And you'll be in full control. I exhaled slowly, my fingers trembling as they hovered over the keyboard. Buried within one folder was something marked only. Contingency, Phase 2. I clicked. Inside were files labeled with dates and project names. Phoenix wasn't just about taking back the company. It was about remaking it, rewriting its future. Education initiatives, tech incubators, mental health programs for youth, affordable housing tech solutions, environmental cleanup systems, real innovation, real impact, real legacy. I felt tears pricking my eyes, not from sadness, but from the overwhelming rightness of it all. My grandfather had seen something in me, something no one else in the Montgomery family ever had. Not Sarah, with her perfect pearls and poison-tipped words. Not Harrison, who thought the world should stay as rigid and cold as his office walls. Not Thomas, who looked at me like I was a temporary investment, an accessory that didn't match the outfit his family had picked out for him. Only Richard Montgomery had believed in me. Not just the woman I was, but the leader I could become. And he hadn't just believed it. He had built for it. Layer by layer, for years in secret. He had built Phoenix with the sole purpose of putting it into my hands, when the time was right. When you're ready, he had written in that final letter. God, I hadn't known what he meant.
Until now.
Suddenly, the console flickered. A new alert. Encrypted message received. Sender, unknown. Signature P. I hesitated, then opened it. Congratulations on full activation, Parker. You've just taken back what they never deserved to hold. But this isn't just about reclaiming an empire. It's about exposing the rot. Phase 1 is complete. Phase 2 begins tomorrow. We're watching. We're ready. You are not alone. No name. No clue who P was. But the message was clear. My grandfather hadn't done this alone. There were others. Watching from the shadows. Waiting for this moment for me. I looked to Victoria. She said nothing. Just met my eyes with the calm of someone who had already seen the worst and was still standing. They'll come for me, won't they? I asked. Absolutely. They'll try to destroy me. They'll fail, she replied without hesitation. But they'll try first. Victoria's eyes narrowed. Let them. Outside the glass window, Boston glowed under a navy sky, the lights of the city flickering like stars beneath my feet.
They didn't know it yet.
But tomorrow at 2 p.m., the world would change. The Montgomerys would walk into that library thinking they'd won. Thinking they had exiled me. Thinking the game was over. But they didn't understand what kind of game we were playing anymore. This wasn't about boardroom battles and whispered power plays. This was about revolution. Built in secret. Powered by purpose. Fueled by legacy. Tomorrow, they would sit smugly with their martinis and memorize speeches, ready to celebrate a new era of Montgomery leadership. And I would walk in with the kind of truth that set entire dynasties on fire. They cast me out thinking I was powerless. They didn't realize they had just unleashed the phoenix. The next morning, the Montgomery estate gleamed in the sunlight like it was preparing for a coronation. Fresh white flowers lined the front steps. Polished luxury cars dotted the circular driveway. Staff bustled through hallways in quiet preparation. To the outside world, this looked like a solemn gathering for the reading of Richard Montgomery's will, a final, dignified moment to honor a legend. But I knew better. Inside, the Montgomerys weren't grieving. They were circling like wolves, each of them dressed in their most somber designer black, sipping imported coffee, ready to snatch what they believed was rightfully theirs. The company, the estate, the legacy. They believed I was gone, forgotten, exiled.
Perfect.
Let them believe it for one more moment. I arrived at exactly 1:55 p.m., 5 minutes before the reading. Not in my funeral black dress, no. That version of me had been buried alongside the illusion that they ever cared. Instead, I wore the white power suit my grandfather had sent me months ago. For when the time comes, his note had read. That time was now. As I stepped out of the sleek black car Victoria arranged, all eyes turned. Thomas froze on the steps, his phone still in his hand mid-text. Sarah gasped, her drink pausing just inches from her lips. Harrison didn't move, but the twitch in his jaw betrayed him. I smiled. Let the show begin. Parker, Thomas said, descending the steps, voice strained. You shouldn't be here. Shouldn't I? I replied, stepping past him like a ghost come back to haunt the mansion. Funny. Last I checked, I was family. He flinched at the word. Victoria stepped out beside me, dressed in sleek black, holding a briefcase like it contained the fate of empires. Who's this? Harrison snapped, rising from his usual armchair in the foyer like a king roused from slumber. Victoria Blackwood, she said smoothly. Legal counsel and CEO of Phoenix Enterprises. Silence. Then chaos. Phoenix what? Sarah spat. This is a private family matter. Actually, Victoria interrupted, it's very much a corporate matter, and Miss Reed's presence is essential. Security moved forward, but froze as Mr. Whitman, the estate lawyer, appeared, flanked by 2 notaries and a thick envelope bearing the family crest. If everyone is done with dramatics, he said, clearing his throat, we'll begin the reading. We filed into the grand library. The room smelled of cedar and old money. My grandfather's portrait still hung above the fireplace, stern, watchful. I took a seat beside Victoria, directly across from Thomas. He wouldn't meet my eyes. Mr. Whitman cleared his throat again and began. The usual formalities passed quickly. Bequests to longtime staff. Donations to favorite charities. And then the tension thickened. To my granddaughter, Parker Reed. Harrison stirred, Sarah leaned forward, and Thomas finally looked up. I leave this letter to be read aloud now. Mr. Whitman opened a sealed envelope and began reading in a calm, even tone. My dearest family, their faces changed with every word. You're all here because you think you know what's coming. Harrison, you've spent years plotting to take my company. Sarah, you've probably picked out new curtains for the boardroom already. And Thomas, his name landed like a blade. You never understood that some things can't be bought. Not love, not loyalty, not legacy. A few gasps rippled around the room. But today, you'll learn what true legacy means. Harrison rose. This is a farce. Mr. Whitman held up a hand. Sit down, Mr. Montgomery. Or leave. Reluctantly, he sat. The letter continued. Parker isn't just my granddaughter. She's been CEO of Phoenix Enterprises for 6 months. Everything you thought you were going to inherit, she already owns it. The patents.
The tech.
The future. Sarah dropped her glass. Thomas just stared. And Harrison, for the first time in my life, looked afraid. To those who were loyal, the staff, the employees, the ones who believed in the heart of this company, Parker will take care of you. To the rest, consider this your severance notice. Silence. Until Sarah whispered, "You planned this." I stood slowly, turned toward them, and smiled.
No, I said. He planned this.
I just executed it. Thomas stood, stumbling over his words. Parker, we can fix this. We're engaged. What's mine was never yours to take. I cut in. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a small velvet box.
The ring.
The one they took from me. I tossed it onto the table in front of him. Tell Melissa, she can keep it. Victoria opened her briefcase and began distributing documents. Legal proof, bank transfers, board decisions, shell corporations, offshore accounts. One by one, the walls came crumbling down. Let me be clear, I said, voice sharp and calm. Montgomery Industries is no longer yours. You've all been removed from power. And if you attempt to interfere, I will release everything. Harrison lunged for the papers, but Thomas stopped him. He saw it now. The war was over, and they had lost. Mr. Whitman cleared his throat a final time. If there are no further objections. Sarah fainted. Thomas collapsed into a chair. Harrison stood silently, his world turning to ash around him. I turned to the window, my grandfather's portrait watching over me. He had lit the match. I delivered the fire. And everything they built on greed was burning. Tomorrow, the world would know. But today they finally saw me, not as the girl they cast aside, but as the woman who now held everything they thought they controlled. Their downfall was written by the one they tried to erase. Please share your thoughts in the comment section below. Each of your shares is not only a motivation for us, but also contributes to spreading value to the community. If you find this content useful, don't forget to watch the whole video, like, subscribe, and share with someone you think needs to hear this too. The silence that followed the reading of my grandfather's will was not peaceful. It was electric. A storm just before it breaks. Around the massive oak table, faces once flushed with arrogance were now pale with panic. Eyes once glazed with boredom now burned with fear. They didn't speak because there was nothing left to say. They had spent years grooming Thomas as the heir, Sarah as the keeper of appearances, Harrison as the cold strategist in the shadows. And me? They never even saw me coming. I had been the invisible granddaughter, the black sheep, the girl who worked with troubled kids in a quaint little Boston apartment, the social worker who, by their standards, had chosen a life far beneath the Montgomery name. But that was the greatest lie of all. I didn't choose that life beneath them. I chose it away from them. Because while they were dining with diplomats and making headlines at fundraisers, I was doing something far more dangerous. I was preparing. Every night I'd said I was working late. I had been earning my MBA from Harvard. Evening classes, online modules, private mentorships arranged by my grandfather under the radar. No one in that room knew. Not even Thomas. Especially not Thomas. He'd asked once if I ever thought about doing something more serious with my life. The implication clear. He meant something respectable. Something worthy of the Montgomery name. I had smiled then. Let him believe I was content being the supportive fiancé, the ideal accessory to his rising star image. But while he played at power, I studied it. Finance, strategy, M&A law, tech ethics. I devoured it all while managing grants at the youth center by day. And my grandfather had watched. He hadn't pushed. He hadn't even encouraged. He'd just left the door open and let me walk through it myself. Because he didn't want an heir who needed power. He wanted one who understood it. One who respected what it could build and what it could destroy. And now, here I was, standing in the ashes of the old guard, holding the future in my hands. Parker, Thomas's voice cracked as he stood. This can't be happening. It is, I replied, steady. You don't understand how this works. No, you don't, I said, locking eyes with him. You thought business was a game of charm and legacy. You smiled at the board, shook hands, made promises. But real leadership? That's earned in the silence, when no one's watching, when it's hard. That's when character is revealed. He looked like he wanted to argue, but he didn't. He knew. I turned to the rest of them, their stunned expressions soaking in every word. I've been dismissed by this family since the day I learned to speak my mind. And yet, while you were trying to erase me, I was being built for this. Victoria stepped forward now, handing out sleek tablets. On each of your devices, she announced, you'll find confirmation of Miss Reed's Harvard MBA, her financial credentials, her full control of Phoenix Enterprises, and her ownership of every valuable asset Montgomery Industries thought it still controlled. One of the board members, Jeffrey Miller, head of the Defense Contracts Division, let out a low whistle. Another, Edgar Mills, fumbled with his tablet, scanning rapidly. This can't be right, he muttered. She doesn't even have clearance. She does now, Victoria said coolly. Check the timestamps. 6 months ago. All approved by Richard Montgomery. Sarah finally snapped. She manipulated him. That's what this is. She preyed on an old man losing his grip on reality. That's when I pulled out the final card. I thought you might say that. I tapped the remote on the table. The library's hidden screen slid down from the ceiling, displaying a video. My grandfather's face appeared.
Sharp.
Steady.
Sane.
Hello, his voice filled the room. If you're watching this, the will has been read. And someone, I imagine Sarah, is claiming I was mentally unfit when I made these decisions. A few gasps. Sarah shrank back. Richard Montgomery leaned forward in the video, eyes piercing. I assure you I was not. I've passed every mental competency test your lawyers will dig up. And I made my choices with more clarity than any board vote you've ever held. He paused, his voice softening. Parker is not just my heir. She is my legacy. And she will take this company where I never could. She has my full trust. And soon, she'll have yours too. Or you can find employment elsewhere. The screen went dark. Silence returned. But this time, it was laced with something different.
Respect.
Or maybe fear. I'd take either. One by one, the board members stood. A few nodded toward me. A few offered tight, 4 smiles. Only Miller spoke aloud. Well, he said, clearing his throat, looks like the future's here. Welcome to the helm, Miss Montgomery. Victoria stepped closer. The press is waiting in the main hall. I nodded. This was it. The moment I stepped out of the shadows and into the light. I walked out of the library with my head high, my grandfather's words echoing in my ears. Patience.
Dignity.
Justice. The cameras flashed. Reporters surged forward. I didn't flinch, because I wasn't Parker Reed, the social worker. I wasn't the disgraced fiancé. I wasn't the forgotten granddaughter. I was Parker Reed Montgomery.
CEO. Heir.
And no one would ever overlook me again. The Montgomerys had lied about many things. But what I discovered next went far beyond family betrayal, beyond backroom boardroom deals and stolen company assets. It crossed a line most never even dared to approach. Treason. It began with a blinking file on the Phoenix interface, hidden behind a firewall labeled Class Alpha, one that even required a second retinal scan to access. My grandfather had buried it deep, but he'd also made sure I would find it. The file was labeled Athena Protocol, Restricted. I opened it, half expecting schematics or boring legal paperwork. What I found instead made my blood turn cold. Emails, bank transactions, encrypted communications between Harrison Montgomery and foreign intermediaries, some flagged by U.S. intelligence as potential threats to national security. Weapon designs, advanced drone AI, tactical software meant for exclusive military use. All funneled through Montgomery Industries under fake subsidiaries, sold off quietly to shadow clients in countries whose names sent chills down the spine of any federal agency. This wasn't corruption. This was espionage. It wasn't just Harrison. Thomas's name was all over the internal authorizations. Sarah's signatures marked charitable tech donations that were really covers for illegal transactions. The same people who had cast me out of my grandfather's estate had been selling classified technology, all while painting themselves as America's gold-plated legacy family. And the worst part? They'd done it while pretending my grandfather was losing his grip. while claiming he was too soft to run the company. But it was him who'd been onto them all along. He hadn't just built Phoenix to protect his assets. He built it to protect the truth. A truth they'd killed to bury. The full depth of it hit me like a punch. Montgomery Industries wasn't just a corporation. It had been a pipeline for black market defense tech, disguised behind polished philanthropy, gala appearances, and family Christmas cards sent out with gold foil. My hands shook as I clicked open a video file buried beneath the last batch of encrypted data. It was dated 3 weeks before his death. My grandfather appeared on screen, seated in the same leather chair I now occupied. His face was grim. "Parker," he began, "if you're seeing this, then they're probably planning a celebration, a press release, maybe even a power handoff. But behind that performance, you'll find what I've uncovered. And now it's yours to expose. They've sold our military contracts, leaked innovations, sold drone software we were paid to keep secure, and worse, to foreign buyers who intend to use it against us. Harrison, Thomas, even Sarah. All of them were complicit. I've kept records. Everything is time-stamped, verified, cataloged. And Phoenix is the detonator." The screen shifted. A list of names scrolled across. Foreign diplomats, rogue tech brokers, shell company executives, all with direct ties to Montgomery Industries. I didn't know how long I sat there, frozen, heart pounding. But I knew what I had to do. I turned to Victoria, who had been quietly watching from across the room. "They sold U.S. defense secrets," I said, my voice tight with fury. "They've committed treason." She nodded slowly. "We always suspected it was more than money. I have proof. So do we." She opened her own secure briefcase and pulled out a thick black binder labeled FBI, confidential. "My team's been working with a few people off the books. Whistleblowers. Former employees who didn't know where to turn. But they knew enough to be scared." Victoria laid out photos, blueprints, passport scans, surveillance stills. "Your grandfather didn't just document what they were doing. He was building a case. A complete one. The FBI has been watching Montgomery Industries for a while, waiting for someone brave enough or powerful enough to flip the switch. And now, that person was me. Are they ready?" I asked. "We just need your go," she replied. My finger hovered over the Athena protocol upload button, a secure pipeline that would send every piece of classified evidence to federal agents, intelligence offices, and select media outlets under protective sources. It would be a nuclear-level corporate explosion. Stock prices would crash. Reputations would burn. And people, powerful people, would go to prison. I pressed send. There was no going back now. Victoria stood slowly. "You just declared war." "Good," I said. Because war was exactly what the Montgomerys had been waging for years, against integrity, against truth, against the very country they claimed to honor. Let them face their reckoning. An hour later, the fallout began. News alerts lit up my phone in rapid succession. Breaking: FBI launches formal investigation into Montgomery Industries. Alleged sale of military software traced to top executives. Insiders claim years of illegal intelligence leaks. Reporters camped outside the gates of the Montgomery estate. Thomas was nowhere to be found. Sarah released a polished statement calling the reports baseless. Harrison? He tried to issue a statement through his legal team, but it was drowned out by the sudden announcement that multiple board members were resigning in disgrace. The empire wasn't falling. It was imploding. And Phoenix? It was rising. By nightfall, I received a secure message from Agent Laura Chen, lead investigator with the FBI's Counterintelligence Division. "We've reviewed the files. Immediate charges are being drafted. You've done your country a great service, Ms. Montgomery. But be careful. Those who profit from war don't surrender quietly." I sat alone in my office, the lights of Boston glittering outside the floor-to-ceiling windows, my grandfather's words echoing in my mind. The world runs on secrets, but it's built by those who know how to unlock them. I unlocked them, grandfather. And now, I'm lighting the way with every buried truth they tried to hide. The Montgomerys thought they could sell their soul for power. They never imagined I'd come back to collect the debt. The morning after the FBI raid, Montgomery Industries was no longer the crown jewel of the East Coast elite. It was a crime scene. News helicopters circled overhead. Protesters gathered outside the headquarters. Shareholders called in a panic, desperate for answers. And inside, the executive floor stood hollow, emptied of the corrupt dynasty that once ruled it with manicured fists and blood-soaked ledgers. They were gone. Now it was my turn. I stood at the center of the boardroom, the same place where, just days ago, they tried to erase me. Now, I faced a sea of stunned division heads, wary investors, and skeptical executives, most of them still unsure how a social worker had brought a billion-dollar empire to its knees. I didn't flinch. Montgomery Industries, I began, was built to change the world.
But it lost its way.
And it's time we take it back. Some shifted in their seats. A few exchanged glances. Others stared at me like they were seeing me for the first time. Good. Because this wasn't the Parker Reed they thought they knew. This was the woman my grandfather raised in the quiet, behind the curtain, the one who spent summers learning how to read stock reports and break ciphers instead of attending debutante balls. This was the leader he chose to carry forward the version of this company he never got to finish building. One rooted not in greed, but in impact. I tapped the screen behind me, and a new logo pulsed to life. Phoenix Division, a legacy reborn. Murmurs spread across the room. Our new direction is simple, I continued. We lead with ethics. We invest in innovation. We give back. The Carter Valley Project? Canceled. Those families will be compensated and relocated safely and respectfully. The environmental violations in Westfield? Repaired. We're committing to a 10-year sustainability initiative starting today. And the tech we once used to hurt people? We're reclaiming it, redirecting it toward affordable housing, education, clean energy. Someone laughed, a disbelieving, incredulous sound from the far end of the table. Reed, that's noble. But it won't make money. I smiled. I thought you might say that. I flipped to the next slide, a set of revised projections, overseen by the Phoenix Analytics team. Profits.
Growth.
A healthier future that didn't bleed people dry. You are so busy lining your pockets, I said. You forgot that building something that lasts requires more than leverage. It requires vision. The room went silent. I walked out of that boardroom, knowing I hadn't just survived the Montgomerys. I was about to bury them, and in their place, create something worthy of the name my grandfather gave me. Just when I thought I had unearthed the worst of the Montgomerys' crimes, something darker surfaced. Much darker. It started with a hidden file embedded in the deepest layer of Phoenix's archive, one my grandfather had encrypted with a code we created when I was 10. A silly summer puzzle, or so I thought back then. Project Eclipse. At first, it looked like another defense contract. Vague budget sheets, sterile lab reports, lists of test groups, and chemical sequences. But the more I read, the more the horror unfolded. They weren't just selling weapon designs. They were testing them. On people. The reports described behavioral enhancements, neurological conditioning, and augmented resilience. But beneath the clinical language was something monstrous. Human experimentation, carried out under the guise of advanced research. They'd targeted vulnerable populations, low-income clinics, mental health facilities, places where people were too broken, too ignored, or too voiceless to fight back. Some patients never walked out. Others weren't the same when they did. They called it adaptive evolution. I called it inhuman. Worse still, the trials had been pushed forward by the Montgomery board, greenlit by Harrison himself, with funding funneled through philanthropic arms of the company. Sarah had signed off on PR language. Thomas had recruited donors from their social circles under the promise of youth restoration and vitality. My stomach turned. This wasn't just a breach of ethics. It was a war crime. Buried deep within the files was a name I hadn't heard in years, Catherine Montgomery, Thomas's sister. The family claimed she had suffered a breakdown and been sent to Switzerland for recovery. That was a lie. Catherine had been one of the first test subjects. The Montgomerys had experimented on their own family, Suddenly, everything made sense. Her disappearance, her silence, her erased presence. She hadn't been sick. She had been silenced. I sank back in my chair, nausea rolling through me. My grandfather had discovered this. That's why he built Phoenix. Not just to salvage a company, but to stop a nightmare. Project Eclipse hadn't ended. It had gone underground. And now, I was the only one who could finish what he started. The Montgomerys thought they had destroyed me when they pushed me out. But all they did was give me a reason to burn everything they built. Because what they called progress was built on suffering. And I was about to drag their sins into the light. They said she was mentally unstable, that she'd suffered a breakdown, vanished to a private clinic in Switzerland. For her own good, Sarah would whisper behind champagne flutes, masking cruelty and concern. But the truth? The truth arrived on a rainy afternoon, soaked, trembling, and still wearing the scars of silence. Catherine Montgomery stepped through my office doors like a ghost returned to claim justice. Gone were the pearls and silk the society pages used to gush over. She wore simple jeans, a gray coat, and a haunted expression that never left her eyes. "You look like him," she said softly, her voice barely a breath. "Your grandfather. He tried to save me." I stood frozen. This was real. She was real. Not a rumor. Not a cautionary tale used to keep the rest of us obedient.
Alive. And ready to speak.
I wasn't in Switzerland, she continued, sitting slowly across from me. I was at Meadowbrook. My breath caught. Meadowbrook, the very clinic buried deep in the Project Eclipse files. The facility where the trials were perfected. The one used to hide the bodies and bury the data. Catherine's voice trembled, but her eyes were steel. They told me I had anxiety, that I needed rest, but they injected me with something. I started having seizures, blackouts. Then the changes came: strength, speed, sensory spikes. Her hands shook. Then came the rage. I listened in stunned silence as she recounted it all. The sessions, the restraints, the tests disguised as therapy. They said it was for science, that I'd be reborn. But it was a prison, a laboratory. Her fists clenched. They used me as a prototype. And when it worked, they called it a success. But when it started to break me, they labeled me unstable. Tears filled my eyes. Rage boiled in my chest. "And Thomas?" I asked. She swallowed hard. He knew. He came to visit. Said he was checking in. But he was tracking my results. Our own brother signed off on my next round of injections. A chill spread through me. "Why come forward now?" She looked me dead in the eye. "Because you're not like them. And because people are still being experimented on. Off the books. In secret. And if you don't stop it, no one will." I nodded slowly. Because I understood now, this wasn't just about reclaiming a company. This was about saving the lives they had tried to rewrite, reprogram, erase. And the first voice that would break their silence would be Catherine Montgomery's, the sister they tried to disappear. Now, she was ready to speak, and the world would listen. I thought Project Eclipse was the worst of it. I was wrong. Catherine's testimony cracked the dam, but what spilled out wasn't just domestic corruption. It was global. Within hours of her going on record, my secure Phoenix servers lit up with alerts. Hidden data caches, traced offshore communications, whistleblower pings from across the world, names I didn't recognize, places I never thought to look, but all tied to one thing. Montgomery Industries wasn't alone. The human experimentation, the behavioral enhancements, the neurological rewiring, it wasn't just being tested in Boston. It had been replicated. Under different names, different brands, hidden within conglomerates across Europe, Asia, and South America, all financed through the same maze of shell corporations, all stemming from one parent source. A syndicate, tech giants, pharmaceutical corporations, even military subcontractors. Each one had a stake in what Harrison had started, a secret alliance obsessed with creating the next evolution of mankind. Faster, stronger, obedient, and entirely profitable. The deeper I dug, the colder the air became. This wasn't just Montgomery corruption. This was a network of global elites willing to sacrifice ethics, lives, and humanity itself for control. It explained the cover-ups, the mysterious accidents, the sudden disappearances of whistleblowers,
The deaths.
one folder was marked Ascendant, an internal project name. Their goal wasn't just human enhancement. It was replacement, an engineered society where emotion was a flaw and empathy was stripped clean from the genome, where those who asked questions were deemed obsolete. They weren't just trying to profit off the future. They were trying to own it. I sat in my office, hands trembling, as the full scale of it hit me. This wasn't a company's scandal. This was a war for the future of humanity. And I was sitting on the only complete evidence trail tying all the pieces together, from the Montgomerys in Boston to biotech labs in Zurich to defense contractors in Singapore. Phoenix wasn't just a legacy now. It was the last firewall between the world and a silent corporate coup that had already begun. Victoria entered the room, face grim. "You see it, don't you?" she asked softly. I nodded. "How long do we have before they know we know?" She hesitated. "Not long. The moment we go public, they'll come after you. Not with lawsuits. With something worse." I stood slowly, my voice clear. "Then we strike first, because the Montgomerys may have built the weapon, but I was going to use it to bring every last one of them down." This wasn't just justice anymore. It was a global reckoning, and I was ready. They called themselves the Ascendant, a name whispered only in the deepest corners of encrypted files, buried under layers of code only my grandfather could have cracked, and only because he'd once been invited in. But he had declined. They had tried to recruit him years ago, told him he could shape the future of humanity. That sentiment and morality were obsolete in the age of engineered progress. He had walked away, and they'd never forgiven him. Now I understood why he built Phoenix not as a business, but as a weapon. Because he knew they weren't a board. They weren't even a company. They were a syndicate, an invisible machine made up of world leaders, CEOs, pharmaceutical moguls, arms dealers, tech billionaires. Unseen. Untouchable. Until now. And I was staring at their names. Real names. Tied to real accounts, real transactions, and real human suffering. Each one had signed off on Project Eclipse's expansion. Each one had watched people die in trials. Each one had funded secret labs in countries with no oversight. And each one was terrified of what would happen if the world ever found out.
Now?
I was going to make sure they did. "Victoria," I said, turning from the screen, "get me Interpol. The UN. The Human Rights Tribunal." She nodded. "Already in progress." I turned to the Phoenix team. "Send the files to secure media partners. The ones with bulletproof lawyers. Then activate the whistleblower shield. Everyone who's helped us gets protection and a full security detail. They'll retaliate," Marcus warned. "You're going after people who control governments." "I don't care," I said. "They've ruled from the shadows long enough. It's time to rip off the curtain." That afternoon, I stepped in front of a camera. Not for a press release. For a global broadcast. I told the world everything about the human trials, the synthetic evolution project, the experiments on Catherine, and the syndicate behind it all. And then I dropped the bombshell. I named them, one by one. As the broadcast streamed live to every major outlet, encrypted documents and footage flooded onto secured public databases. Proof no one could ignore. Evidence that couldn't be erased. Within the hour, panic spread across global markets. Arrests began. Borders closed. And the Ascendant, the most powerful people no one had ever heard of, were finally exposed to the one force they feared, the truth. They wanted to evolve past humanity. But I reminded them that humanity fights back. This wasn't just revenge. This was revolution. And I was leading it. It ended where it began. Montgomery Industries' original research facility, a remote compound buried in the Berkshire Mountains, sealed for years under the guise of renovation. But the files told a different story. This was where Project Eclipse was born, and where it needed to die. Inside, the air was heavy with ghosts, of experiments, of secrets, of people they tried to erase. The walls buzzed faintly with residual energy, as if even the building remembered what it had done. I moved carefully through the main corridor, Marcus and Victoria flanking me, their eyes alert. At the heart of the complex stood the central lab. Lights still flickered. The security systems had been hacked open hours ago.
He was waiting for me.
Harrison Montgomery. He looked older, paler, but not broken.
Not yet.
Parker, he said calmly, as if greeting an old friend. I was wondering when you'd come. I'm not here to talk, I said, stepping into the room. I'm here to end this. He smirked. And what? The pursuit of evolution? Of advancement? Of power without weakness? I narrowed my eyes. You mean power without soul? He stepped forward, slow, controlled. You think exposing us to the public makes you the hero? You've only delayed what's coming. You can't stop progress. I'm not stopping progress, I said, lifting the flash drive in my hand. I'm stopping you. He lunged then, but I was ready. Marcus fired a non-lethal shock round, sending Harrison crashing to the ground, groaning in pain. Victoria moved swiftly, injecting him with a final dose, the counteragent designed by my grandfather. The one meant to unravel every enhancement, every modification, every shadow of false superiority built into his DNA. You were never the future, I said, kneeling beside him. You were a warning. His body writhed, veins glowing faintly as the enhancements broke down. Whatever made him ascendant was burning out. I stood. You always underestimated me, I said softly. But the thing about being invisible is no one sees you coming. He stared up at me, not with hatred, but with disbelief, as if even now, he couldn't fathom how the girl they tried to erase had become the woman standing over his empire, burning it to the ground. And in that silence, I felt it. The end. Not just of his reign, but of a legacy built on pain, lies, and greed. We walked out of the compound without a word. The sun was rising over the trees, golden and unbothered. I didn't look back. There was nothing left to save. Because justice had finally been served, not in a courtroom, not in a headline, but in a lab where monsters were made. And this time, the monster lost. The war was over, but the work had just begun. 3 months after Harrison Montgomery's fall, the world had changed. Slowly, uneasily, but undeniably. Project Eclipse was dismantled. The facilities were seized. The syndicate members, what remained of them, were behind bars or hiding in countries without extradition treaties. Their names, once whispered in fear, were now etched into public record with one shared headline: The Rise and Fall of the Ascendant. But this story, it wasn't theirs anymore. It was mine. I stood at the entrance of the newly rebranded Phoenix Global, overlooking the Boston skyline. The Montgomery name had been removed from the building, replaced with something that meant rebirth, resilience, justice. Inside, construction teams were rebuilding what had once been a cold empire of glass and greed. New departments, new leadership, transparency where there had once been shadows. In the corner office, my office, hung a single photo. My grandfather and I, side by side at my graduation, his smile wide with pride, mine unknowingly stepping into destiny. Victoria entered, a tablet in hand. The Education Initiative launches next week, she said. 3,000 scholarships, focused on underserved communities. And the medical fund? I asked. Fully approved. First payments to the families impacted by Eclipse go out Friday. I nodded, my chest tightening with something I hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. This wasn't just revenge anymore. It wasn't even justice. It was restoration. Of people. Of truth. Of possibility. I didn't think it would feel like this, I whispered. Winning. Victoria smiled gently. That's because you didn't win. You changed the rules. Outside, I could hear the distant hum of reporters, eager for another headline. The world still had questions, but for once I had answers. And this time, I wouldn't be silenced. Marcus entered with a grin. The International Summit confirmed your spot. You'll be keynote speaker. I blinked. Me? After what you've done? They're calling you the architect of a new era. I laughed softly, almost in disbelief. A year ago, I was being pushed out of my grandfather's funeral. Now, I was building the legacy he always dreamed of. I stepped onto the balcony, letting the wind wrap around me, Boston stretching endlessly beyond. Behind me were shadows. Ahead, a sky filled with light. This is just the beginning, I said. And I meant it, because from the ashes of betrayal, something extraordinary had risen. And her name was Parker Reed Montgomery. The world didn't go quiet after the storm. It never does. Justice doesn't come wrapped in applause or a perfect ending. It comes in pieces, slow, relentless, unfinished. And that's the beauty of it. 365 days after I walked out of the Montgomery estate in disgrace, I stood on stage in Geneva, not as the granddaughter they tried to erase, but as the keynote speaker of the World Ethics in Innovation Summit. The crowd rose to their feet when I was introduced, not for who I used to be, but for what I had become. I looked out at the faces, scientists, leaders, students, survivors, and I spoke the truth I once thought no one would hear. My name is Parker Reed Montgomery. I was underestimated, dismissed, and betrayed. But I'm still here. Not because I wanted revenge, but because I believe in rebuilding what others tried to burn. They listened, because now they knew. Project Phoenix had launched global initiatives, medical transparency programs, survivor reparations funds, technology innovation hubs that prioritized ethics over profit. Catherine now ran one of those programs, the Meadowbrook Truth Foundation. Every day, she gave voice to people who had once been silenced like her. Every week, she received letters from families thanking her for surviving, for speaking out. Marcus headed global security, still watching my back, always 10 steps ahead. Victoria? She was now vice chair of Phoenix Global, the quiet enforcer of our mission, the gatekeeper of legacy. And me? I finally understood what my grandfather meant when he said the world was built by those who knew how to unlock its secrets. Because I had, not with brute force, but with truth, with resilience, with the fire they tried to extinguish, now lighting the way for others. I visited his grave the next day, alone, no cameras, no entourage, just a granddaughter with a storm in her past and a vision in her hands. I kept my promise, I whispered, laying a white lily on the polished stone. I didn't just inherit your empire. I honored your heart. The wind rustled through the trees, and for the first time, I felt peace. The kind that comes not from victory, but from purpose. And even now, somewhere across the world, I knew the shadows still lingered. Quiet threats, old names with new faces. But they'd never catch me off guard again. Because I wasn't afraid of darkness anymore. I had become the light. And this was just the prologue to something greater. The legacy lives on. And it's only getting started. At its heart, this story is a powerful reminder that legacy isn't defined by bloodlines, wealth, or titles. It's defined by courage, integrity, and the choices we make when no one's watching. Parker's journey shows us that being underestimated can be your greatest weapon, and that true leadership isn't about control. It's about protecting the voiceless, exposing the truth, and building something better for the generations that follow. For today's world, especially for those of us who've seen decades of change, the lesson is clear. It's never too late to stand up for what's right, to break cycles of corruption, and to reclaim power with purpose. Whether in our families, our communities, or our country, truth always finds a way to rise. If this story moved you, we'd love to hear your reflections. What legacy do you want to leave behind? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss the next chapter in this journey. Together, let's keep the light of truth burning, one story at a time.